What I'm trying to do is let you have a first project that is simple and easy to do. It's you open your Vectric software. I have Vcarve Pro, and you can see up there it's 10.509, and there's a revision since then. The first thing you do is you have to know the size of your board. So you get your board, measure it, and then you create that file that you see right there. This pops up. It's a job setup. My board is 3.5 by 18. So if you look, I've got the numbers in there already. 3.5 is the height, which is the Y direction. 18 is this way, left to right. It's the width. And the thickness is, a normal board thickness is 0.75. That's not actually the thickness of the board if you measure it, but that's good enough. And I'm putting it on the center. The reason I'm doing that is normally we clamp in the four corners. So if you're clamping in the four corners, I can work in the center of the board safely. If I have the clamps in a way, it's going to make it difficult. So those are the steps that you have to know. See that? I just changed it so you can see the zeros on the lower left. And if I put a clamp down there, it always starts in the 0 position. So that would be in the way of the clamp. So that's why I chose the center. Clamp here, here, and here in the four corners. So that way you're all set to go if you do it in the center. Now if you do it in the center and you're working all the way over where your clamp is, you can still run into your clamp. But we're not, this is a simple project. We're going to use a V-bit and make a sign. So to make a sign, we're going to do letters. So we've got our drawing tab, our drawing template open. And you see there's a push pin up there in the right corner. If you push that pin, that goes away. Your drawing tab goes away. When you push it the way it is straight up and down, you'll see that it stays locked in place. I click on the Draw Text tool, and you'll see a box that clicks up. And it's set for 1.25, 1.25 inches. So that's okay. Anytime you use a tool, you have to close it when you're done. That's what I was showing you there. There's a close mark. When you're done with it, hit the close mark. If you look at this, you can see that it's at center. You can see the anchor point, which is at the center, 0 and 0. And I'll type in my letters, my first project. And if you notice, they're not all on the screen. They're far off to the right. And that's okay, because what we're going to do once we're done here is we're going to close this, and we're going to use our next tool. That tool is a white box with arrows on it, and it's called a Line Selected Objects. A selected object is purple on your screen. As you can see there, that is purple. So that means it is selected. If it's black, that means it's not selected. So it needs to be selected for this to work. And we're going to align to the material. That's the first one up there. And you can align several ways. You can do left to right, which is this one. You can do up and down, which is the one on the far right. Or you can do both of them at the same time, and that's the one I normally use. But in some cases, you only want to do left to right, or you only want to do up and down. So you don't use the middle one. You pick the one you need. Now, if you look at it, you can see my letters are too big. Now, while your letters are selected, if you click back on that text tool, which we'll do shortly, you'll see that that pops back in, because you can work on that tool if it's highlighted, with that tool if it's highlighted. So I'm going to go over and change my spacing first. See where it says Edit Text Spacing? That's the third box over, or third tool over. If I click on that, you'll see my selection tool, or my pointer, changes. When I move back over on this screen, you'll see that it actually changes to a T. And then when I come down in between the letters, you'll see it change again. And if you look, there's two arrows pointing towards each other. That means when I click in that space, you'll see that the text actually moves closer together. If I hit the Shift key, that pushes those apart. So if I have Shift, it'll change the other way and it'll push them apart. If I have this, each time it clicks, it pulls it together. And I clicked, I think, 8 times. And when it does that, if you notice, it still is over in the left corner. So I'm going to have to go back to my Align tool and hit Center. And you can see it it doesn't quite fit on my board. So what I'm going to do is close this and go back to my text tool, and you can see the text is still selected. So it'll come up in my text box. So I click on it, and I can change my size here. See where the pointer's at? 0.2, and just make it 1.1. See how that fits. There you go. Now we'll close that. Do our align again. And if you notice, up and down also need aligning. I'm showing you here that you can align with this, but it's not really the tool you need. If you click center, what it does is the center of the box goes to that anchor point that we had. That left justify and right justify, see it? So my anchor point, which is down there, becomes at my right side, my left side, or my center. So that's not going to center the text the way you want. But I wanted to show you those tools as well. We'll close that and go to our alignment. And we're going to align it left, right, up, down, because the text size shrank horizontally as well as vertically when we changed the number down to 1.1. Now it fits on my board. So that looks all right. So we're actually done with our drawing tools because we've got the title we want. We've got it centered the way we want. And we'll come up here and use our tool paths. Now, if you look, there's a punch pin up at the right-hand corner. When I click that, it does a couple things. It locks that in place, and it shrinks the size of my screen so that the project actually fits in that space between the two. I'm going to use the Vcarve as my tool path because I'm going to use a Vcarve bit, a V-bit, not a Vcarve bit, but a V-bit. And I'm going to use, the first thing I have to do is select that. Now if you go up, my starting depth, let's go from top to bottom. I'm going to start on the surface of this board, which makes sense. The flat depth we're not going to use at this point. We're just going to select a V-bit and tell it to cut a path, and we're going to give it a depth. But when you select your bits originally in your tool database, you don't want to change the tool database itself. You want to edit your tools for your machine. You can change that later once you get familiar with the minimums and maximum speeds for your machine. But for now, we'll just select a tool. And we're going to use the 90-degree V-bit, and we're going to select it 1/2 inch. We're going to come down here and select it, and that puts it right there. As you saw, it didn't change because that's the one I selected before. It always picks the last one you used. And then I do edit, and that allows me to edit just this tool inside just this file. My spindle speed for the V-bit should be about 20,000. My depth of pass, so that's pretty high. Cutting parameters, pass depth, I'm going to change that to 1.25. I think should be enough. I'm not going to change anything else because I'm not going to do a multiple pass. I'm just going to do one pass. But my feed rate, and you can see those parameters you don't want to change either. My feed rate down here, I'm going to slow that down because 100 is pretty fast for a cutting speed. That means you'll go cut 100 inches per minute, and that's fast. So for our first time out, we're going to change that to 30, and we're going to lower our plunge rate, and that's how fast it goes down to 10. So we've got those two corrected, and then we hit OK. Now that's embedded in this file. So there we go. If you look now, you can't see all those changes, but we're going to come down next to where it says name and title. That's the lower part of the screen. See where it's blinking? This is a Vcarve, and we're going to say Vcarve Project 1. So this is the first project that we've done. And we're going to say we're going to use a V-bit. That tells you what tooling you need when you get out in the shop to actually cut it. And it's a 90-degree 1/2 inch V-bit. So you can't use slash or dots in your title because it messes it up. When you hit calculate, what it does, and it did it pretty quick, is it calculates it, and now what it shows you is your preview screen, which is your 3D view. See it up there? You've switched from your 2D drawing screen to a 3D view. And it turns on the toolpath anytime your toolpath is checked. So your toolpath's on the lower right corner. I hit preview and it actually carves that. Using all the parameters I've set, it carves it. You have a speed slider there so you can actually slow that down and see it carve individual letters, but I didn't do that. Now if you click on your mouse and drag up and down, you see it rotates that object up and down, or so you can see it. If you go left and right, it rotates it left and right. You have a scroll mouse, which I have. You scroll it up, you'll see that it zooms in. If I want to zoom into that T, and you scroll it down, and it zooms out. One of the problems I first had is once I zoomed in, I didn't know how to see the rest of the letters. I could see the STP, but I didn't need any oil supplements, so I was like, how do I see that other stuff? Well, if you hit your control key and then click your mouse and hold it, you can drag that left or right so you can see the screens. And that's in the book someplace if you read it. But that's a little tip for you. Once you zoom in, if you want to scroll left and right, you can actually hold the control key, click the mouse, hold the mouse clicked, and drag it left, right, or up and down. So that saves you a little time so you can look at it and see. Now your V is carved up at the top. You can see there's 2, 4, 5 different symbols. And as you click on those symbols, you'll see it changes the view that you have. That's going to do the view from the x-axis or into the x-axis. This one's going to view into the y-axis, which is the edge of the board. So we go back to the other one, it tilts it so you can see it. And that's a zoom, so it zooms back out. So there you go. That's good. I like that project. It looks good to me. So we can actually close this. And then how do I save it? How do I save this toolpath? Not the file, but the toolpath. How do I save the toolpath so that I can actually cut it on my machine? Well, right over here to the far right, you'll see a file that says save. I can preview it. That's what we just did. I don't really want to do that. I'm not sure why. Oh, that's so you can reset it and preview your visible toolpath. You can do it again if you've changed it. That's how you, if you go back in and you change your tooling, that's how you have to preview it again. You reset it and try it. I'm still happy with it, so now I'm going to save it. When you click on the save, you'll notice that it says no visible toolpath. So it's not going to save anything because you don't have this box checked. You got to check that box, and then it comes up and it tells you the title of it. It tells you the size of the bit you're going to be using underneath there. It tells you there's only one bit required. If it required multiple bits, if you have a tool that has an automatic tool changer, you can save all those at once, and it tells the machine to go get this one and that one. Next, in your post-processor, easy for me to say, post-processor, you can see that you can select any one that you have, and your machine should be in here someplace. If it's not, you can get a hold of Vcarve, and they'll send you a file, or the company that you bought your machine from will send you a file that works with this. Mine's a CNC Shark, and I'm going to save it to my flash drive. But if you look over here, you don't see my flash drive because, oops, I forgot to plug it in. See it? It's not there. You're going to need a flash drive to transmit this file over to your machine. So you can plug that flash drive in to your machine to transmit this file over. So what I'll do is rummage around here and find me a flash drive, plug it in. As you can see, I did. It's a video drive, F. Open it, and I'm going to create a new folder for it because I don't have any CNC files on there. So I'm going to say new folder and type in a file name, CNC machining files. The problem I have is once I start using a flash drive, I fill it up rather than erase it. So I'm going to create a new folder that tells me that this is a sign that I'm making. So I can look in my sign subfolder in my CNC machine file, and I can find my file. So I'll open that and I'll save this. I usually save a lot more information, like the size of the file, that kind of stuff. Now, if I want to check and see if it's there, I hit save again, and you'll see that it's looking at the F drive, looking in the subfolders. If you look at the top there, you can see how far down it goes into the sign file, and it finds it. So I don't have to save it again. That way I can verify that I saved it in the right place. But occasionally I save this under documents, and I get out the machine and it doesn't work. So, well, I answered the phone, and we'll go back to our project here. So if you click that, you can see a couple things happen. It turns on my toolpath. If I rotate that, I can see my toolpath, how it goes up and down. You see the zoom in, you can see the little green marks. There we go. The little green marks, that's a travel up and down of my tool. You can see them going down and then back up, down and back up. And the height above that is set. I'm going to show you where that's set at. You come up here to setup, click on that. You go down for thickness. That's my thickest material, which I'm not going to change. It's centered material surface. We're going to skip the model position because we don't have a model right now. There it is. Rapid Z gaps above material. My clearance is 0.2. My plunge is 0.2. Basically, it'll come down to 0.2 and then slowly come into the workpiece, which is fine. And below that, you can see that we actually have our home position, which you can see. Oh, let's see. We're not caught up yet. There we are. There's a home position. X is 0, Y is 0, and a gap of 0.8. That's why that line is so much higher above the workpiece. It comes up to 0.8 and rests, which is fine. So I hit OK, and it comes out of that. So you got to make sure you check that, because when you're doing a laser with mine, there's some other parameters you have to set. So, and once you do that, if you don't change it back, your piece will get all messed up. So there we go. We've got it set so it's safe and good to go. We've saved it. We're going to go out in the shop and cut it. That's how you do. This is your first easy project. Now, of course, you don't have to title it My First Project. You can put your name. You can put your wife's name if she lets you buy the machine. You can put your address. You can do anything you want, and have fun with it. Do your first project. The V-bit is simple and easy to do. The next one we'll do is like raised lettering pocket tool. We can show you how to do that. So have fun with it.